Welcome to the last talk before lunch. We are here in the right period, session 2, and we are now listening to Ulrike Hugel about RFID chips inside the body. Very frightening. We will see.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your words. I am presenting RFID chips, you see it, and some aspects about ethical issues, but also triggers and the current state of usage, especially in corporations. First of all, some general information and also historical information about the topic. You see here a very small microchip, RFID tag on the right side hand picture over there. It's a device tagged into the body, very small as you see, like a rice corn, and in the form of either an IC or an RFID tag encapsulated in a silicon case. And there is also a unique ID number inside, and there you can store diverse information, for example, personal identification, medical history, staff allergies, contact information, and so on. Can easily be implanted. Normally, some guys do it themselves. They use veterinary ad kits and so on, or they go to the doctor for the implementation. And it can be used for tracking. You all know it perhaps from China. They track their people also via RFID. So one of the first implementing such a chip was Amal Grafstra. The picture doesn't come in. There should come a picture in, but it doesn't work. Let me try it again. No. Oh, now it is here. This was Amal Grafstra. He was the first chipped person in the field of hobbyists, I know, in 2005. And he documented the chipping, and he built up several blogs and so on, and there people changed their experience and so on. So a bit more words about this historical development. The FDA, that's a governmental institution, approved chips from Verichip, that was a former firm producing such human chips for medical reasons. They approved it in 2004. And then the first firm came up in 2006, chipping their own employees. It was Citywatcher Inc. in the US. Then a guy, a British scientist, chipped himself in 2009. His team hacked the chip in the next year and showed how a computer virus could wirelessly infect his implant and then be transmitted onto other systems. And a newer development, 2015, Martin Wismeijer, a Dutch marketing manager, placed an RFID chip in both hands, so 2 chips in both hands, to store his Bitcoin, private keys, and also business card information. 2015 and 16, Hannes Sjöblad experimented and is still experimenting with near-field communication, so Android-compatible chip implants. And in the hobbyist sector, we have something like implant parties for hobbyists. So there they come to such parties if they are interested and can get an implant. What about this year? I've chosen an example from Sweden. In Sweden, as you all know, they have nearly no problem with cashless payment. And therefore, here there is a good experimental market for such human chipping. About 3,000 suites are implanted. You see here an implant procedure on the right side. On the left side, you see payment via the chip inside a train in Sweden. The Swedes are implemented, for example, you see it here, to replace their credit card information for identification reasons, for key login or train tickets and so on. There are many applications in the corporate field. What are surrounding issues coming up? You all know IoT related applications coming up, big data analysis, AI and so on. We have all stuff in the field of user awareness. We have many applications dealing with user engagement. We have from smart home to production 4.0 and smart cars and so on. Many developments in this surrounding field, and many, in my opinion, also triggering things for such technologies like implants. But we have surrounding issues too, beside this corporate and individual applications coming from IoT and so on. We have all these developments in the field of human enhancement, of cyborgism, and also from the transhumanism side. So let me give you an impression. Many things are coming from the military regarding all these new technologies, and there is a huge discussion, especially in the US, concerning super soldiers. That's a form of transforming soldiers as human beings to more or less machines, if I say it in a very provocative way. If you are interested in such a métier, I would say look at this link. Sorry, you can't see it here, but I can give you the link after the presentation. There is an interesting movie on this site, Super Soldiers, Ethical Concerns in Human Enhancement Technologies. And as we here see, we have developments in the field of exoskeletons, prostheses, you perhaps all know these developments, but also cognitive enhancement technologies and self-heal the body and mind activities in this military environment. And you, from time to time, we also see such initiatives, like this here, that they develop a special suit for soldiers with diverse functions and yeah, a lot of this technical stuff inside. So here, the biohack scene. Examples that blur the line between machine and human. The first example, I don't know why, but they implanted blinking LED lights, so I don't know really the sense behind, but anyway. The second picture, here you see an implant to do blood tests. And the third picture is from the artist Neil Harbison. He was born completely colorblind, and now is, interestingly, hearing with his ears, and it works. Other examples. The first picture you've seen in the keynote yesterday, they call it iBorg. The second one relates to North Sense. That's also an implant here on this side. And this, the last one, here we come again to our RFID or NFC implant chips. So that's a market, let's say, dealing with all these biohack they did a study in the US, and they asked adults if they would agree to have, let's take the first one, a brain implant, a brain chip implant, for improved cognitive abilities. So if adults would like to have it, or their child, they asked. And nearly a third said yes. And the second example, about more than 30%, more than this third, would say, I would like to have synthetic blood for the improvement of my physical abilities. So here we have a movement towards body enhancement from the medical side, but also from other more tech sides. So let's come to some organizational issues of organizational usage. I've brought the movie. First you see some issues in the field of corporate usage, and then some other stuff. Now we should have sound, but it doesn't work. Ooh.
So the biggest benefit, I think, is convenience.
Sorry, we have no sound.
People find it interesting because you don't have to have keys, you don't have to use tags or anything else for using printers. You can do airline fares with it. You can also go to your local gym, etc. So it basically replaces a lot of things you have other communication devices for, whether it be credit cards or keys. Of course, putting things into your body is quite a big step to do. And it was even for me at first, thinking like, why would I do this? But then on the other hand, I mean, people have been implanting things in their body like pacemakers and stuff to control your heart. That's a way, way more serious thing than having a small chip that actually can communicate with devices.
The data that you could possibly get from a chip that is embedded in your body is a lot different from the data that you can get from a smartphone. So, conceptually, you could get data about your health, you could get data about your whereabouts, how often you're working, how long you're working, if you're taking toilet breaks and things like that. All of that data could conceivably be collected. So then the question is, what happens to it afterwards? What is it used for?
I'm certain that this will be the natural way to add another dimension to our everyday life. I mean, for me to be able to seamlessly interact with everything digital around me means me leaving a keychain, which, however, is a 5,000-year-old invention. It's kind of lame. And carrying money around, a wallet, and plastic cards, it's obvious. I mean, it's the next step. The next natural step for electronics is to move into the body.
I want to be a part of the future. That's why. Yeah. I saw this at a fair once and got really excited because it's finally gotten to using it in movies, and now it's available for common people.
That's it.
Hopefully I can leave my keys at home and just keep this. I usually lose a lot of things like my keys and everything, so this will give me access and help me a lot more.
So we see we have a just for fun. Sorry. So we see that we have a just for fun scene, but we have also corporate applications. And in the movie you've seen this guy, Johan Österlund. He is managing and founded also the firm Biohacks in Sweden. And if you look at the Telegraph news, we see that from November this year, we see that British companies are planning to microchip some of their staff in order to boost security and stop them accessing sensitive areas. Biohacks, this firm I mentioned, provides human chips, told the Telegraph, and it was in talks with and founder, so Österlund was in talks with firms in the US in the legal sector and the financial sector, and they want to chip their employees. And as they write, one of these firms have hundreds of thousands of employees. You can imagine not all of these employees will have a chip if it works, this deal, but perhaps a few hundred or whatever. So costs for one chip are 170 euros. But there also comes in this economic environment resistance from the employers. I wondered why from the employers and not from employees. And we'll see what's going on in this field further on. An interesting statement was done in 2007 from two scientists from Forster and Jaeger, and they asked perhaps a possible employment ad could be in the future like the following: wanted power systems engineer with experience in high power, motor controlling design, must be a US citizen and have a valid ISO compatible access control RFID implant. And so we see sometimes, if we look at the news before, it works much faster than we would imagine. But we have also to look at group pressure processes and also societal pressure behind these debates. But I'll come to this a bit later. I have done two studies and only would like to give you a snapshot of the results. First of all, interviews with HR managers, with IT managers and CEOs. And let me give you two statements. The first, in the future, in about 10, 20 or 30 years, we will have two categories of person. Firstly, persons who are prepared to lose their privacy. That will be mainstream trend, and they will live without privacy. And the second group will go down and exist on an aftermarket. They have to organize themselves, whatever way they are going to do it. That means they will have to struggle for survival. So a very pessimistic view. And in the future, people, on the second statement of a guy, in the future, people could be in an extortion situation. If you do want to have privacy, you won't get an employment. If we look at the interviews with this 27 respondents, we see that asking, would you agree to get the human chip implant as an employee, they 24 say no. But there are also answers, you see it here, perhaps not for me, but for others, perhaps for my own colleagues or my workers. But all in all, most said that that would be breaking an ethical border, and you have to have trust in your employees and colleagues, so trustful relationship, and therefore no such things in the field of surveillance, of employee surveillance, but partially weakened tendencies toward the medical and the security application. And we see this based on a quantitative study in Germany, Austria and Switzerland with 219 respondents from the same field, from the IT field, mainly from the IT field, but also a few guys have been from the HR area. For medical reasons, for general medical reasons, to have such an implant, more than 50% do not agree, but 27% rather agree. In the field of emergency accident cases, such chips can be used to have access to allergies, to medications, and so on. 21% say rather agree, and 23% say no, sorry, rather agree, and 20 that can't be, sorry. But the 41% fully disagree, and an implant as means for payment, we have a high disagreement of 86%. So acceptance is in the states of Central Europe not as high as perhaps in the Sweden example I've shown. Let me give you some concluding remarks. I think Stephen Fox, in a current article, asked 3 questions. First, opportunity versus exploitation. Utopia versus dystopia. Utopia versus dystopia, and emancipation versus extinction. And we can ask these questions, I think, ourselves. What society would we like to have in about 10, 20, or 30 years? Currently, in my opinion, the acceptance outside of these biohacker or body hacker communities or scenes is not very high, but that could change. So we have seen in history that there could be a special point changing the opinion of a broad of people, and could be that something changes much faster than we would imagine now. Chipping is in the Central Europe area not really recognized as an advancement. And societal considerations appear to be related to communities. We see this in a highly degree, but also ideology. We have a huge group, for example, in the US, Christian fundamentalists, and they are very afraid. They see such chips, but also specific tech tattoos as a sign of the beast. So there is a religious background also too, if we have groups of resistance. Potential triggers, I found the following. The idea of being a hybrid with technology seems to be interesting. But also being something like a pioneer, and we have also aspects triggering perhaps this technology. If we have groups of employees, of chipped employees, there is the question of fitting in this group of this department if I'm not chipped. Or social control issues. We know social control issues, especially from the background of surveillance technologies, and also societal pressure. Let me give you the example of social freezing. You perhaps all know the debate triggered from Apple and Facebook, and there we had all immediately this societal discussion about what is allowed from firms to do in a way that comes also in the broad society. So that was from me. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention, and I hope you have gotten an impression of RFID chipping for employees and others. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the audience? We still have some time left before we leave for lunch. Anybody experimented with chipping or?
One guy was here yesterday.
Okay. I only know that in Austria, I think it's mandatory that you chip dogs. I think it was discussed, but I think it's already law. Can you comment on that?
What did you say?
That it's mandatory to chip dogs.
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I heard it right, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Yes, that's mandatory,
already
yes.
mandatory.
That's more or less worldwide in industrial
So once you have a dog,
countries,
you also
mandatory.
are monitored as long as you have your dog with you, because everybody can
But
read out
it's-
the dog.
In some countries, I think it's based on a EU guideline. You have also the opportunity to give this identification information of the dog by a tattoo instead of the chip. But most people take
Put
the
it
chip.
in,
Yeah.
okay. And there are also other stories about chipping of soldiers because enemies could build mines that explode when the soldier comes near. So there are all sorts of problems with that.
Yeah.
Okay, then thanks a lot. We are early for lunch, so there's still some time to discuss things, maybe over a cup of coffee before lunch or whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you.